Welcome to a special episode of Beyond the Roundup. The Associated Press created what appears to be a hit piece on ivermectin under the guise of fact-checking. And so today we'll be fact-checking the fact-checkers. It's the case of ivermectin for publicly subsidized research. From TrialSite News, I'm Adrian, and our episode starts now. Now, we here at TrialSite News recently reported on a U.S. Senate hearing at which, among other things, there was testimony urgently calling for more research on an emergency use authorization for ivermectin as both a prophylactic against and an early treatment for COVID-19. Now, as we've covered, there is mounting evidence in support of these uses, and definitely for government-sponsored research for this cheap and safe drug. However, during this time, the Associated Press, in collaboration with Facebook, created what they called a fact-check and titled the story as "No Evidence Ivermectin is a Miracle Drug Against COVID-19." Now, in their piece, the Associated Press relied on old protocols and ignores newer evidence, showing an excessive deference to official edicts over honestly looking at the medical evidence. Now, the AP author didn't do her homework on ivermectin, as we'll elaborate on as the show unfolds. And, as we've reported here on TrialSite News, based on accumulating data and growing evidence, the case for publicly funded investigation into ivermectin is compelling. So the question then has to be asked, does the AP represent a particular agenda when it comes to ivermectin? Does power, politics, and money influence which research gets funded in the midst of the pandemic? To answer this question, let's take a deeper dive into the AP piece. First, let's talk about Beatrice Dupuy, who wrote the article. Now, she indulges in a straw man argument by asking whether ivermectin is miraculous, rather than using a term more relevant to the public health, which would be whether ivermectin is effective. And then she uses a bait-and-switch tactic in her article's key finding, by offering an assessment that answers a different question than the one in the claim. For example, the Associated Press article states, and I quote, "Claim: the antiparasitic drug ivermectin has a miraculous effectiveness that obliterates the transmission of COVID-19 and will prevent people from getting sick. AP's assessment: false. There's no evidence ivermectin has been proven a safe or effective treatment against COVID-19. Now, the claim is about ivermectin as a prophylactic to prevent getting COVID-19 illness, but the assessment's language states that it is not an effective treatment against COVID-19. Since prophylactic prevention is for the well and treatment is for the sick, confusing these medical uses appears to be sloppy journalism at best. Now let's talk about errors in fact. The AP relies heavily on the fact that the FDA and the NIH have said that ivermectin is not approved for the prevention or treatment of COVID-19. It is key to remember that official guidelines are often updated as evidence comes to light, and to rely on authority without looking at the evidence is yet another fallacy when searching for the truth. The most up-to-date summary of the evidence regarding ivermectin is from the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance's review of the emerging evidence demonstrating the efficacy of ivermectin in the prophylaxis and treatment of COVID-19, which quite a bit of the chronicling of the accumulation of evidence to date was accomplished by none other than we here at TrialSite News over the past number of months, as Dr. Pierre Corey, a member of the FLCCC, pointed out. Now, Dr. Corey's review includes 90 sources to various studies and evidence, and lists what could be the top 11 data points to use, and continue to collect data on ivermectin. Now, this would include, from 2012 on, in vitro studies have showed viral replication inhibition from ivermectin. Ivermectin inhibits SARS-CoV-2 replication in vitro and thereby removes all viruses within 48 hours, as shown by the University of Monash in a lab. Ivermectin is anti-inflammatory with strong data showing an inhibition of both cytokine production and a key inflammation mediator. Ivermectin substantially shrinks viral load and prevents organ damage in animal models using SARS-CoV-2 or other coronaviruses. Ivermectin, as a prophylactic, stops viral transmission and development of COVID-19 illness in exposed persons. Ivermectin both quickens recovery and stops deterioration in people with mild or moderate COVID-19. The drug hastens recovery and avoidance of ICU admission and death in hospitalized patients. Mortality in critically ill patients is reduced with ivermectin. Regions with widespread use show major reductions in fatality rates. Safety, availability, and cost are unparalleled, with minimal drug interactions or side effects seen over almost 4 decades and billions of doses of use. And finally, the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines has included ivermectin for many years. Now, additionally cited by the Frontline COVID-19 Critical Care Alliance, the International Journal of Antimicrobial Agents recently published an analysis of data using the prophylactic chemotherapy databank administered by the World Health Organization, obtained by Worldometers, a public data aggregation site used by, among others, the Johns Hopkins University. Now, they compared the data from nations with mass ivermectin use for parasite prevention with other countries and found that the ivermectin countries had significantly lower COVID-19 case counts, to a high degree of statistical significance. Now, we here at TrialSite News, as I mentioned earlier, have been chronicling ivermectin for months now. A simple search function can be used to find most of ivermectin-focused studies referred to in Dr. Pierre Corey's meta-analysis, which includes many of these. Now, there are too many to showcase here on the show, but you can find the listing by following the link in the description below to the TrialSite News original article on this topic. So let's get back to what appears to be a hit job by the Associated Press. Now, in their piece, they use a comment from Amesh Adaja, a Johns Hopkins professor and respected infectious disease expert, who declared that all that has been put forth is anecdotes and studies not reflective of the gold standard of research. Now, this is a puzzling position, given the truly substantial material amount of evidence accumulating that undoubtedly justifies the NIH research support, for example. Now, it should be noted that Dr. Adaja has earned significant revenues from pharmaceutical companies in the past. Now, this shouldn't be a problem normally. However, could his dismissiveness indicate otherwise? Meanwhile, over $2 billion of taxpayer dollars has been injected into just 3 pharmaceutical companies to develop completely novel monoclonal antibodies. These companies include Regeneron, Eli Lilly, and AstraZeneca. Now, we should add it is impressive what they have accomplished thus far during pandemic conditions. We have reported heavily on these important monoclonal antibody investigational products. We can also declare that the NIH's NIAID has accomplished some amazing things as well. For example, it was their scientists that helped co-discover the Eli Lilly product in association with a spin-off from the University of British Columbia called Abellera. Now, our position is that this should not be an either-or, which is a false dilemma type of situation. There is no reason there cannot be multiple treatments at various price points, levels of accessibility, and effectiveness given any number of conditions. This includes both novel, branded treatments as well as generic products. Hence, there should be compelling evidence for action. The importance of investigating the use of off-label, FDA-approved drugs for helping to treat COVID-19 should be a paramount concern. And we now have the case for ivermectin. The amount of data justifies such public research expenditure. In any other time, regulatory authorities would embrace this opportunity. After all, this was the very point of the FDA's Real-World Evidence Program in association with the 21st Century Care Cures Act. So, to sum this all up, dozens of studies, from case series to observational studies to randomized controlled trials, reveal plenty of data to justify serious investigations into ivermectin, one of many treatments consideration associated with COVID-19. The idea that this drug would contradict a major vaccination program just doesn't hold up. Rather, it would complement such an effort instead of impede. In fact, while the vaccination program ramps up, no person in their right mind should stand against safe and effective, low-cost options to help combat a pandemic should they be proven safe and effective. Moving forward, journalists such as those at the Associated Press should try and do their job by doing their homework before making such broad and conclusive claims. This should be a matter of public health and saving lives. Those at the AP would be wise to remember that. And that, my friends, brings our episode to a close. Thank you for joining us today. From TrialSite News, I'm Adrian, and you've been watching a special edition of Beyond the Roundup. We'll see you next time.